This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
This week on Off the Record, CMS backtracks on backpacks. Instead of an action, how about an auction? And tension again between school leaders and black leaders. City Hall and the Hornets make a deal, a new practice center, a better Spectrum Center, but what happens to the transportation center? And more transit news, millions more for the Gold Line, and $1 billion change possible for the Silver Line. Also, a change in GOP gun politics, as North Carolina's 2 Republican senators say yes to a deal on gun control in Washington. Plus, falling further behind in affordable housing, and is it South End versus Uptown, or is South End part of Uptown? Lots to talk about next on PBS Charlotte. And from our PBS Charlotte studios in historic Plaza Midwood, I'm Jeff Sonnier, and we're off the record talking about the stories you've been talking about this week. And if you watch the news, read the news, and listen to the news, well, you'll recognize the names and faces around our virtual table. Eli Portillo from the UNC Charlotte Urban Institute, Steve Crump from WBTV, Danielle Shemtob from Axios Charlotte, and Christina Bowling from the Charlotte Ledger. Thanks for joining us, gang. You can also join the conversation at home. Just email us your questions and comments to offtherecord@WTVI.org. We'll talk about backpacks in a moment, but I want to start this week with the ongoing tension between CMS and a group called the African American Faith Alliance. They're concerned about low-performing schools, in particular in low-income and minority neighborhoods, but the Faith Alliance doesn't seem to have much faith in CMS leadership. Not before, and maybe not now either. Steve, you want to start us off this week about the beef between the new CMS superintendent and the Faith Alliance?
Yeah, I think what it kind of comes down to, Jeff, is that when Hugh Hadibal got to this group, it was more or less kind of a get to know you. Let's see if we can work some things out, especially with the departure recently of Superintendent Ernest Winston. And it turned into anything but that. In many regards, it ended up being somewhat of a gripe session. From what I understand, Hadibal became very frustrated and walked out. But I think you have to look at the history as well as some of the dialogue that's happened over the year, where you nailed it yourself. You talked about some of the underperforming schools, and there's always been this overriding issue in the African American community. How do we improve graduation rates? How do we improve test scores? And when Hadibal came in, I guess the plate was already full. Not only that, you had the departure of an African American superintendent just a few weeks ago, being Ernest Winston. So, you had potentially a keg of dynamite that he walked into, and even in as much as some of the initiatives that we've seen going back several years ago, where we had millions of dollars poured into Project Lift, which didn't necessarily bear the fruit that it was supposed to. So, what happened with the blow up, with the attitudes and, the conversations became frayed, it wasn't necessarily a one-trick pony. That had pretty much been in the making for some time.
Yeah, and we heard from Vilma Leak this week talking about the CMS budget among the county commissioners, unwilling to give them more money until, again, they see more results. Vilma's allied with the Faith Alliance as well. It's a new superintendent, but and a relatively new group, I suppose, but these are old problems that have really been around CMS for decades, right?
Yeah, I think you can, go all the way back to where you can think John Murphy, not as far back as Jay Robinson, because I think the community was still trying to define itself after quarter to busing, after Dr. J had kind of set up shop here. But, you look at just the whole list of superintendents where, it's kind of the same tone, same choir sheet, different group, where you had, everybody from John Murphy to Peter Rollick to Jim Pugsley. I mean, there seems to be just this whole, scenario of can they get it right? And the question then becomes, what will it take to get it right? Is it bricks and mortar? Is it access to some of the amenities that you have where, you have some inner city schools that are suffering from a lot of the issues where they don't necessarily have the amenities that you find in suburban schools. So again, as I said, it's not a one-trick pony. It's a multi-level concern and problem.
Yeah. Another concern that the school system has right now is security. Obviously, we're out of school for the summer, but they still had to deal with that whole issue of the backpacks that were supposed to help solve the problem of guns in high schools, but really never got distributed at all because of other problems. Christina, you want to pick up where Steve left off?
Sure. So, you know, obviously security was one of the overarching challenges that the school district faced in the last school year. They added metal detectors to high schools and, of course, very famously ordered, I think it was 46,000 clear backpacks, with the goal being that it would be visible if a student brought a handgun or some kind of arm to school. Those were ordered, I think, from Office Depot. They spent like $440,000 on them. They sat in it, they arrived, and when CMS staff went to unpack them, they saw that there was a tag saying that they could contain carcinogens. It's a very common tag that is on a lot of products that we all use, but they decided to halt the distribution there. They kept them in a storage unit or a warehouse since February, and there they have been sitting with everyone wondering what happened to these plastic backpacks. We got the answer this week. They're going to auction them off. And so, yeah, the saga of the plastic backpacks is still to be determined.
Yeah, and I think to a big degree, both of these issues kind of get at the ongoing just dysfunction that we're seeing here. And, we're talking about clear plastic backpacks and the CMS superintendent's relationship and how he allegedly treated a group of leaders. And we're talking less about the underlying issues of guns in schools and these terrible achievement gaps that have opened up and widened even more during COVID. So in a lot of ways, these conversations just kind of remind me of each other, where we're talking about the issues that are dysfunctional, but one step removed from the core issues that you really hope the community would focus on and maybe find some solutions to.
Yeah, and when you talk about the little things like backpacks, I guess they're relatively little things, or the big things like low-performing schools, it all comes back to a question, I guess, of confidence and competence. And I think a lot of parents and, whether you've got kids in the school or not, if you're a taxpayer, you just wonder, do they know what they're doing? Do they have a plan? And is that plan going to be effective moving forward? I think those are questions that the new superintendent will have to answer. The old superintendent didn't answer, and the school board, which is the same school board for both, like I said, you feel like we're spinning our wheels here and not really getting answers to the real questions, the underlying questions that we all want.
But Jeff, the point that you raised, though, and this goes back for years, not just with this current administration, there's always been a tug of war as it relates to school funding between the county commission and the school board itself. I mean, the school board is not necessarily its own taxing authority, and every year they have to go to the county commission and say, hey, here's what we want, here's what we need, here's our wish list, can you do it? And sometimes, it goes without controversy, but quite obviously what we've seen unfold over the last few weeks, there's going to be some tension there.
Yeah, we're going to hear about that budget, I think, next week from the county commission. We remember there was a issue about withholding dollars last year. We'll see if that comes back this year. Schools, by the way, are out for the summer. And before we move on to our next subject, I want to just touch base with you, Christina, about, a lot of families, a lot of kids off to summer camp. And the Ledger did a story this week about an unfortunate and serious accident at one of the most popular summer camps in Charlotte, right?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this happened at Camp Thunderbird, which is a YMCA of Greater Charlotte camp on the shores of Lake Wylie. Last week, we learned that there was a 12-year-old girl who fell off of a zipline platform there at Camp Thunderbird. A lot of details are unknown. The YMCA really hasn't said much or anything about how it happened. We believe that the girl is still alive. We don't know her condition. They just really haven't said much. And we've heard from, parents of counselors and campers who are concerned and just would like more information. This is a camp that hundreds of kids go to each week all summer long. Some stay overnight, some go for the day. But for sure, it's of a lot of importance to a lot of people around here.
Yeah, summer camp, a great experience for so many kids. But again, accidents can happen, and you just look for more information when you're a parent to know that your kids are safe. Let's change gears and talk a little bit about the deal between the Hornets and City Hall. Hornets are in the off season right now, but I guess you could call this a win for the team. But whether it's a win for the taxpayers remains to be seen. You want to talk about that, Danielle?
Sure. So the city council approved $215 million in improvements to the Spectrum Center earlier this week. And essentially, the improvements are pretty straightforward, HVAC, entrances, things like that. But the big thing that people have been talking about is the new training facility, which would be located at where the current Charlotte Transportation Center is, or next to the arena if that does not happen. But the larger picture is that the city has been trying to redevelop the transit center for a number of years now. And there's been sort of a push to, they were working with two developers, and there's been a push to get, offices and retail and things like that in that area. So this really sort of adds to that development plan. And what it would do is add the training facility to that plan for the transit center redevelopment, and actually move the transit center underground.
Underground.
Yes.
Eli, I see you nodding up there. Is this a good idea? I know you watch transit projects fairly closely. Any thoughts about this?
Well, the bus system is really focused on uptown in Charlotte, and those buses all come in to the transit center for the most part, and that's where people switch. And there have been public safety concerns there for a while. So I don't know that putting the transit center underground is necessarily the best way to alleviate those concerns. I think people also forget that bus ridership in Charlotte has been falling for a long time before COVID. It peaked in 2012, 2013, and bus ridership has fallen really sharply even before the pandemic. So we've got a bus system that's struggling, and I think this project illustrates the way that the city sees transit can often be in tension with the way transit is used. The city sees it as an economic development tool a lot of the time. If you look at South End and the Blue Line extension to the north, how development has boomed there. They're really hoping that putting the transit center underground, putting the buses underground, will open up this new development site where they'd partner with a private company to build a lot. But I don't know that that's the best move for the transit riders and the transit system as a whole. So those goals are kind of sometimes at loggerheads.
Yeah, I know the city's trying to use naming rights to pay for this, $60 million in naming rights to pay for this new practice center. And it sounds like they're trying to link the two projects, maybe as a way to kickstart the transit center renovation. Is that a fair assumption, Danielle?
Definitely. And you have to remember, too, the epicenter is right next door.
Right,
I mean, this is a whole area that city leaders would really like to see redeveloped. But I do want to make a point, I think to what Eli was saying, it's important to understand that, the majority of transit riders are people of color and are low income. And I think that, we need to keep in mind going forward, like Eli said, this tension. How do we make sure that people who are actually riding transit are still, the best decisions are being made for them, too? There was a report in WFAE in the Transit Time, I believe, newsletter talking about, is it discriminatory to move it underground? There was a consultant that Steve Harrison spoke with, or, are there concerns about emissions and things like that? So I think we really have yet to see sort of a plan. We've seen this big development vision in this rendering, but I think we've yet to see a plan for how this works for transit riders themselves.
One situation, Jeff, and I know you and I are dating ourselves as the two old men as a part of this group, but we remember what was happening where people were waiting at the corners of Trade and Tryon for buses before the transit center was ever constructed. And there was the rumors in the community, the conversations that, hey, we got to get these bus riders off the square because, when it comes to Chamber of Commerce type brochures, it doesn't look good. And that was kind of the feeling where it's just like, the brass, the Bank of America, the Chamber of Commerce, and that sort of thing. So they end up building, the transit center, which we've seen what it's morphed into. But the other side of that too, and this is the other question as it relates to the money being put into a new complex for the Charlotte Hornets, and that is back when Pam Seifert was the city manager here, there was this pie in the sky deal where you'd have kind of a transit mall and the businesses that would, kind of support what was happening, at what's now the Spectrum Center. Well, the reality is a lot of those businesses went in and failed. The only two businesses that are left are the barbershop that's there and the Hornets team store. So I'm just wondering, strategically, and as it relates to economic development, will there be something else to put in there in addition to this big plaza like we've seen in places like Milwaukee, when the Bucks won the championship last year?
Yeah, I think that's what the city wants. I know the city also has an alternate plan which would not touch the transit center, but would still build the practice facility. So it's not necessarily a done deal regarding the transit center, but it is the thing that a lot of folks seem to have focused on as this deal with the Hornets has gone forward. $275 million, by the way, $215 million for the Spectrum Center, and the $60 million from naming rights for the practice center. Those are the numbers for the deal. City Council also talked more about transit this week. Let's take the lines one at a time, shall we? First of all, the Gold Line is getting several $1 million in planning money for an expansion from its present 4 miles to 6 miles, but not without some reluctance on the part of a lot of city council members who don't like what they see right now when it comes to the Gold Line, right? Anybody?
Yeah, so, the plan is to expand the Gold Line to the east and west, bring it up to a total of 10 miles, adding 6 to the 4. City Council approved $4.3 million for the planning of that, trying to figure out how much it would cost, where exactly it would go. But there's been a lot of kind of reluctance on City Council. They still voted for it 8-3, but they've been talking about the problems the Gold Line's had with phase 1 and 2, where there's been low ridership, a lot of service delays, a lot of inconsistent service, and that's because of everything from operator shortages to cars parking on the tracks and blocking it because it shares the road with cars. So City Council has been saying we don't want to approve the next phase of this thing until we get these figured out. Now, they did approve the planning money, so we'll see what ultimately happens, but there's been a lot of question marks around if it's so hard to operate a 4-mile streetcar line, how in the heck is a 10-mile one going to work?
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind the other thing, too, when they initially unveiled this Gold Line, it was supposed to run between Rosa Parks Place on Beatties Ford Road, which is where the health department is, all the way out to Eastland Mall. And incrementally we're seeing, as Eli talked about, the fact that, okay, there's been some shortcomings, and this may not necessarily be the best way of dealing with transportation in an urban area. However, some of the business operators along Central Avenue are saying, what about us? And they're hoping that they could get some, tourism kinds of activities or people coming to that part of town on the Gold Line, more so than, relating just on the traffic that goes up and down Central Avenue.
Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest issues has been whether or not there will be a dedicated lane. Many of the problems, though not all of them, like Eli said, there's also issues like operator shortages, but many of the problems stem from the fact that the streetcar shares traffic with cars. And so if it had its own dedicated lane, it could operate much more like a light rail, wouldn't have to stop, at a stoplight and behind traffic if there's a vehicle parked there. So I think the issue, though, is that, they've been going back and forth. City Council has asked, will there be a dedicated lane? And they've been going back and forth as to where that would be possible. Because if you think about its route, Central Avenue, there's a very busy street. So I think it remains to be seen, how much they can build a dedicated lane, how much of the route will be a dedicated lane, what will they do when they can't build it, and how can they make it so that people can actually that it can compete with basically commuting in your car. Because if it's going to be faster for you to hop in your car, then you're probably not going to take it.
Christina, you did the great race over at the Ledger, right? When they first started the Gold Line service. Tell us a little bit about that.
I was just going to jump in with that. Yeah, so we actually had a recreational runner race the Gold Line. Eli was out that morning as well. And shockingly enough, the runner outraced the Gold Line train. So proving that two legs can go quicker a lot of days than the Gold Line.
Yeah, there are lots of problems to work out on the current Gold Line, let alone the future Gold Line. Meanwhile, we're talking about the Silver Line as well. And again, that kind of discussion between ridership versus development. You know, what are we building here, and why are we building it? And it almost feels like a shift on the part of CATS and the CATS planners on what the Silver Line is supposed to be or will be. You know, once they start building it. Anybody want to take first crack at that Silver Line? Eli, I see you nodding.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a little complicated, but basically the plans for the Silver Line have been to run it around Uptown to the north. So following basically 11th Street, 277, and then back down. So skirting all of Uptown, looping around it. CATS said that this would generate more development in places like First Ward where that's lagged and there hasn't been a lot of development. Transit advocates have been saying we need to bring it through Uptown. We need to bring it through the center so that people can ride it straight to work. And CATS has really been resisting that for a few years now. But there have been recommendations from the Urban Land Institute that, in fact, this is what they should do. And at a meeting this week, CATS said, okay, this looks like a good idea. It would cost roughly $1 billion less to run the Silver Line up to Uptown, then down, sharing tracks with the Blue Line, stop right there, and then have a second part, the part that goes to the west, basically come into Gateway Station. So it wouldn't be one continuous line. It would be an eastern segment sharing some tracks with the Blue Line in Uptown, and a western segment ending at Gateway Station. This would be about $1 billion cheaper, and they estimate it would draw about 22,000 riders a day versus 19,000 riders a day.
So if
it's a shift, and it pretty significant, I think.
Yeah, if it's $1 billion cheaper and it carries more passengers, why are we even having this discussion? I mean, you know, it seems like the obvious choice.
Well, two reasons. I mean, one, you're really talking about two separate lines now, not one continuous one. And this was supposed to be a continuous east-west line. And, you know, the other thing is that economic development piece.
Right.
CATS has said that they want this to be a tool that spurs growth like we've seen in South End and just north of Uptown, and bringing it through to share tracks with the Blue Line, you know, wouldn't have that same effect most likely.
Yeah. Danielle?
And you have to think too that the original sort of idea around bringing it through Uptown, well, the reason that it's so much cheaper now, originally they wanted to put a tunnel through Uptown, which would not have been cheaper.
Yes, that's
it would
a
have been
great point.
significantly more expensive. So this new proposal is sort of a cheaper way to get at the same goal. Although, of course, as Eli mentioned, you know, it's not a contiguous segment now. But I think that it is definitely a compromise that's welcomed by a lot of transit advocates, you know, considering the original proposal that did not go through Uptown at all, and also did not go directly to the airport.
Yeah, none of this is going to happen unless taxpayers approve dollars for it. So I guess they've got to find something that taxpayers would also ultimately find acceptable as well. And when you can save $1 billion, at least on paper, I guess you put that in the brochure when you're trying to sell that tax increase to the to the public. Hey, we've got a few minutes left, and I want to shift gears on a couple of other subjects. We had a March for Our Lives earlier this week, last weekend actually, in conjunction with a lot of other cities. Because of the mass shootings we've seen in Buffalo, actually really all over the country. But what we've also seen this week is a shift in gun politics. Both of our Republican senators, Richard Burr and Thom Tillis, part of the group in Washington that is apparently trying to negotiate a compromise, Republicans and Democrats together, on some sort of gun control. And that's really a shift when it comes to politics here in North Carolina, in particular Republican politics, right? Anybody?
I think it's the issue of the Second Amendment, and the reality is, did everybody get what they wanted in this particular bill that's going to come out of the Senate? I mean, initially, what was it they were talking about? Finding 10 senators to jump on board with the Democrats, and you had Speaker McConnell, who basically bought into the idea, but there are some things that are going to be left out. Far as I think the real big sticking point is the ban on assault weapons, but there's some things, I guess it's the old adage of half a loaf is better than no loaf at all as it relates to getting things through legislatures.
It does feel like a softening, though. I mean, Thom Tillis was even one of the spokespersons for this bipartisan group, and I guess when you don't have to stand for re-election for another couple of years, that gives you some flexibility on issues like this, but it does kind of, it's the first time really that I recall seeing this kind of softening among major Republicans in North Carolina on an issue like gun control, which is so central to a lot of the Republican platform. I don't know if that'll transfer into this coming election when we've got a gun shop owner running on the Republican ticket for Senate, but to replace Richard Burr, but we shall see. Affordable housing, Danielle, you did a story this week about how effective or maybe ineffective the private fundraising has been in trying to establish more units. You want to talk briefly about that?
Yeah, so, I think that what we've seen over the last few weeks with affordable housing news has really just illustrated that we cannot keep up with how quickly the need for affordable housing is growing. So the Private Affordable Housing Fund, which is managed by a group called LISC, this is all the money, if you remember back in 2019, the corporations, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all the big employers, that they came out and donated to affordable housing, separate from the Public Housing Trust Fund. They have created or preserved a little over 1,000 affordable housing units since that fund was created, using the $53 million that was poured into it. And, I mean, that's 1,000 more units than we had before. Well, in the case of preserving preserving some units that may have otherwise not been affordable anymore. But really, everything we're doing is a drop in the bucket when you look at all of the communities that we've seen being displaced lately. Sterling, for example, we've seen the homelessness numbers grow. And so I think that the city is really just trying to figure out, how do we keep up with this? How much money is it going to take? And how do we best use the resources we have? Because we have a shortage in the tens of thousands. So 1,000 units is great, but it's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, your story said 23,000 units short for the poorest families, and folks like cops and waitresses and nurses, they can't afford the average rent now in Charlotte for apartments. That's really sad, and that's a challenge for the entire city. Hey, one last topic I want to touch on is Uptown and South End. Center City Partners talked to council this week about whether they're the same or different. Do they compete or do they compat? You want to talk about that, Christina?
Sure. So Michael Smith, CEO of Center City Partners, spoke to City Council this week, like you said, on Monday. The answer is, he says they're one and the same, really. I guess Center City Partners really likes to think of South End as part of Uptown. Yes, South End has seen the big growth, of course, lately. That's what we've all been talking about for so long. But the idea being that it is part of Uptown, and the growth kind of moves around. If you think about, when Moorhead development was really big, when Trade and Tryon development, when South Tryon development. So the idea that South End is now sort of been absorbed into Uptown is kind of the theme that he was touching on this week. Yeah,
the success of South End is hard to take yourself away from. Any last thoughts on that?
I think geographically, we've always kind of, used Uptown, I guess the blueprint being anything inside of the 277 belt was always designated as Uptown. Everything outside of 277 was not Uptown. But there's always been this correlation, this relationship between Center City Partners, and they even had South End Partners at one point. So,
Eli, we'll give you the last word on this. Go ahead.
Synergy's been there.
Uptown is about 1 square mile. If you think about how big the central business districts in other major cities are, it's a lot bigger than 1 square mile. So I think there's plenty of room to grow.
Time to redraw the lines, I guess, right? Hey, we're out of time, but thank you all for joining us on what I think was a pretty good discussion this week. Thank you at home for joining us as well. If you've got comments or questions about what we talked about this week or what we'll talk about in the future, send them to offtherecord@WTVI.org. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on Off the Record.
A production of PBS Charlotte.